foot of Tuanchang Island, one of the 3 islands in Lake Kunming at the Summer Palace, stands Zhijing Pavilion. The 3 islands, Tuanchang, Nanhu and Zhaojiantang, symbolize the 3 fairy islands that, according to Chinese legend, lay in the East Sea. Zhijing Pavilion has a rather strange and whimsical look. Obviously, it was built in imitation of a tower on the fairy islands. An old story has it that when English and French soldiers sacked Qingyi Yuan in 1860, they burnt down the boatyard beside the lake, and this prevented them from reaching Zhijing Pavilion, which was located well away from the shore. Later, during the reign of Emperor Tongzhi, the timber was removed from the pavilion to be used in the reconstruction of Yuan Mingyuan, the old summer palace. Only the foundations were left. Imperial architect Lei Tingchang produced a coloured 3-dimensional design for rebuilding Zhijing Pavilion. But the project was abandoned after the funds ran out. Today, plants grow on the island, blooming and withering in the endless cycle of the seasons, along with the ebb and flow of the water in the lake. Lei Tingchang believed that his efforts in rebuilding the Summer Palace would re-establish the reputation of his family, but the project would be the last time his family would ever be called on to lend their skills to the building of an imperial garden. Prince Chuan had earned the favour of Empress Dowager Cixi thanks partly to his support for the reconstruction of the Summer Palace. But in 1890, just 4 years after the work began, he died, and he never saw the completed garden. Soon after the project was completed, Empress Dowager Cixi had Emperor Guangxu placed under house arrest there in Yulantang, the Hall of Jade Ripples. Emperor Guangxu was the son of Prince Chuan, the man who had gone to tremendous lengths to support the rebuilding of the Summer Palace. But now, the Imperial Garden had become his son's prison. In the same year that Prince Chuan died, the Admiralty Board, which he had headed, was forced by a lack of funds to stop commissioning warships. In July 1894, just as work at the Summer Palace was nearing completion, war broke out with Japan. In an ensuing sea battle, the Chinese warship the Jianyuan was sunk. 2 others, the Chaoyong and the Yangwei, were gutted by fire after running aground. Other ships were either destroyed or captured. By February 1895, the vaunted Beiyang fleet had been wiped out. Significantly, the marble boat in Lake Kunming had been built using part of the funds allocated for strengthening the navy. In March 1895, a month after the disastrous defeat at sea, the Admiralty Board was disbanded. By the end of the year, the rebuilding of the Summer Palace had been hastily wound up. Subsequently, documents have been found that have shed light on this episode. Based on accounts submitted for the 56 projects within the Summer Palace, experts on the history of the Qing dynasty have calculated the total cost of the reconstruction at between 5 and 6 million taels of silver. This would have been enough to build 3 additional warships. The reconstruction of the Summer Palace lasted for 9 years from 1886 to 1895, but as the budget was insufficient to cover everything planned, several damaged buildings to the rear of Longevity Hill and in out-of-the-way areas were not restored. Still, the main features of the original Qingyi Yuan, the Garden of Clear Ripples, were preserved. Ren Shou Hall, the Hall of Benevolence and Longevity, is situated on the eastern side of Longevity Hill. It was here that Empress Dowager Cixi and Emperor Guangxu discussed state affairs with their ministers and received foreign envoys. Other halls, including Le Shou Hall and Yulan Hall, also underwent restoration and became the living quarters for the imperial family. They were laid out like the traditional residential compounds commonly seen in northern China. The new Dehe Garden was the area where the imperial family's living quarters were concentrated. Ting Li Hall and the area known as Strolling Amid Paintings were among the places on the western side of Longevity Hill that underwent renovation. Work was also done on Nanhu Island in Lake Kunming and the 17-arch bridge, both of which remain from the original Qingyi Yuan. A key part of the renovation project focused on the buildings in the middle of the front side of Longevity Hill. All were rebuilt and a number of new ones were added. Baoyuan Tower and a Tibetan Buddhist complex had survived the fire of 1860. They remained just as they were at the time of Qingyi Yuan. The biggest change on the front of Longevity Hill was seen in the rebuilt Daobao and Yanshou Temple, renamed by Yundian the Hall of Dispelling Clouds. It formed, together with its auxiliary structures, the central building complex on the front of Longevity Hill. Bai Yundian and Forxiang Tower are the most recognizable symbols of the Summer Palace. Landscaping experts generally agree that the greater prominence given to the buildings on the front side of Longevity Hill actually made the layout more harmonious. The overall appearance was even more pleasant than it had been during the time of Qingyi Yuan. During the reign of Emperor Qianlong, Qingyi Yuan was open on 3 sides. Only the part from Wenchang Tower to the west gate was protected by a wall. The Summer Palace, by contrast, was fully enclosed. Its long wall transformed what had been a park for the imperial family's pleasure into a palace. Empress Dowager Cixi was so loath to leave the garden that it became the political center of the Qing Empire. Lei Tingchang, the chief architect of the Summer Palace, died in 1907, 12 years after the project's completion. With his death, the Lei family, so long famous for their work in building imperial gardens, went into decline, and so low did they fall that during the Republic of China period they were forced to sell almost all their blueprints and designs just to support themselves. Landscaping skills that had been developed and honed by the family for generations were lost.
颐和园的建造在1895年完工，它的总设计师呢叫雷廷昌。雷廷昌呢出身于一个著名的建筑世家，在中国入选世界文化遗产的项目当中呢，每5个里面就有1个是由雷家设计建造的。2007年6月20日，样式雷图党入选为世界记忆遗产。
The Summer Palace is among the representative works of the Lei family. The last imperial garden built during China's feudal age, it was also the last great work by the Lei family. As such, it represents the height of the family's landscaping powers. Just inside the east gate of the Summer Palace stands a cypress tree. The scars caused by burning more than 100 years ago are still evident. 2/3 of the main trunk is dead, but new branches have grown from a side trunk. The gate to the courtyard in front of Le Shou Hall beside Lake Kunming bears an inscription, "Close to water and plants." Le Shou Hall was the sleeping quarters of Empress Dowager Cixi. Just in front of the gate is a quay where the Empress Dowager came ashore whenever she visited the palace. It's a place where, beyond the broad stretch of water, it's possible to see luxuriant hills and feel close to nature, hence the inscription, "Close to water and plants."
我们现在是在颐和园的知春亭，一会儿我们会沿着昆明湖向北，第一站到水木之厅，去参观那儿的电灯电话展览馆。大家看那儿，岸边有根大杆子的地方，慈禧太后住在颐和园的时候，就在那根大杆子上曾经挂着一盏巨大的电灯。
More than 100 years ago, a huge lamp, the brightest light in the entire summer palace, would be hung on the pole, which was called Searching Light in the Sea. If it remained lit during the night, it indicated that Empress Dowager Cixi had not yet gone to sleep. Only after the light was extinguished could anyone else go to bed. Empress Dowager Cixi loved the electric lights imported from Germany. In fact, they were one of the reasons she was so fond of the summer palace. One night, the summer palace was ablaze with light. Eunuchs and palace maids were hurrying through the halls and corridors, and flowered canopies and coloured lamps decorated the route all the way from Xihua Gate at the Forbidden City to the East Gate of the summer palace. Earlier that evening, several princes, princesses and court ministers had arrived at the summer palace. Now they were boarding boats at Jichuan Pavilion, from where they would head to Paiyuandian. It was November the 14th, 1897, Empress Dowager Cixi's 63rd birthday. A box had been placed on a desk outside the second gate of Paiyuandian. It contained a message of congratulations to the Empress Dowager from Emperor Guangxu. As dawn broke, Empress Dowager Cixi rose from her bed in Le Shou Hall. She was in the habit of getting up at 6 o'clock, but she would not leave her bedroom until she had soaked her hands in warm water for a while, cleaned her face carefully, and applied rouge. The Empress Dowager was very particular about her appearance. She often made her own rouge concoctions, and she always examined the designs for her clothes before they were made. In that year alone, the imperial tailors in Suzhou made 135 sets of clothes for her. It's said that a silk overcoat and a pale pinkish purple made for Empress Dowager Cixi's birthday took between 400 and 500 workdays to complete. The cape was woven with 3,500 pearls, some as large as birds' eggs. Empress Dowager Cixi would always spend a long time in front of her wardrobes, selecting the clothes she would wear that day from among the many dozens she owned. She would wear a formal dress when holding court, a different dress when she took a stroll beside the lake, and yet another for dining. She changed clothes several times a day. She was always careful about coordinating her outfit. If she wore a dress with butterfly patterns, she would also wear butterfly jewelry. The preparations for the Empress Dowager's birthday had begun 6 months earlier. A month before the big day, she would decide who would be invited to the summer palace for the occasion. Princes, princesses and court ministers all regarded it as the highest honour to be present, and those who were chosen had to attend a special training course to familiarise themselves with the various protocols associated with the event. The birthday celebrations at the Summer Palace lasted for 8 days. Apart from the formal birthday banquet, there were performances of Peking opera. Although the Empress Dowager enjoyed seeing a crowd having a good time, she was very particular about their behavior. She would not permit any impropriety. Even the Emperor and Empress had to take part in the dress rehearsal for the special birthday events. Soon after the rebuilding of the Summer Palace had begun a few years before, Empress Dowager Cixi had ordered that the work be speeded up so that she could celebrate her 60th birthday there in 1894. But that year, war had broken out with Japan, and the ministers in charge of the war effort opposed holding any birthday celebrations. The Empress Dowager, however, was furious, threatening that anyone who made her unhappy today, she would make unhappy for the rest of their lives. To her dismay, the war dragged on. With the Qing imperial forces suffering defeat after defeat, the country rose up in protest, and in the end, the Empress Dowager was forced to issue a decree cancelling her birthday celebrations at the Summer Palace. Hurried arrangements were made for an alternative celebration at the Forbidden City. Even 3 years later, when the Empress Dowager finally celebrated her 63rd birthday at the Summer Palace, the country was still not at peace, and just 3 days after her birthday, German warships intruded into Jiaozhou Bay. Whenever she went to Pai Yundian, Empress Dowager Cixi always passed through Yao Yue Gate and into the Long Corridor. The Long Corridor had been set on fire by British and French forces in 1860, but it had been meticulously restored, and Empress Dowager Cixi loved to take a stroll along it, admiring the paintings on its beams. There are more than 14,000 of these paintings, all drawn in the Suzhou style. They depict the famous scenic spots around Hangzhou's West Lake, among them early spring on Su Causeway, autumn moon over placid water, and remnants of snow at Broken Bridge. Apart from the landscapes, there are paintings of flowers, birds, and historical figures. As Empress Dowager Cixi was also a great fan of Peking opera, many of the paintings depict episodes from operas. With the time for the birthday celebrations approaching, the area around Pai Yundian on the front of Longevity Hill was a hive of activity. Outside Pai Yuen Gate, court officials of the third rank and below lined both sides of the path. Inside the gate, princes and court officials of the second rank and above stood beside Yuhua and Yunjin halls and the Golden River Bridge. The empress, princesses, wives of princes, and court ministers stood by Fanghuai Hall and Zixiao Hall inside the second gate. Empress Dowager Cixi was carried in a sedan chair from Leshou Hall through the Long Corridor and onto Jieshou Hall on the east side of Pai Yundian. Before her birthday party began, she took a short rest in Pai Yundian's eastern chamber. Behind Pai Yundian is Dehui Hall, from where a corridor extends to the east and west. Called Hill Climbing Corridor, it links Pai Yundian with the several subsidiary halls on the side of Longevity Hill. The name Pai Yundian, Hall of Dispersing Clouds, comes from a poem by Guo Pu, who lived at the time of the Jin dynasty. A line in the poem reads, "Immortals disperse the clouds to reveal the gold and silver terrace." Pai Yundian and the hall surrounding it form the most magnificent building complex at the Summer Palace. Pai Yuandian and its subsidiary buildings were built specially for Empress Dowager Cixi's birthday. The occasion was the first time Empress Dowager Cixi sat on the throne in Pai Yuandian to receive congratulations on her birthday. With the ceremony about to begin, the princes and senior court officials stood in line outside the second gate in front of Pai Yuandian. Their birthday gifts had already been delivered to Empress Dowager Cixi for her to inspect. They were all rare treasures gathered from across the country. A picture of 100 babies on a screen was a gift from Zhang Zhedong, the Governor-General of Huguan Province. It symbolized the wish for the Empress Dowager to enjoy a long life and the country lasting prosperity. Empress Dowager Cixi was particularly fond of ornamental scepters, and she received many of them on her birthday. Another of the Empress Dowager's loves was exquisite clocks from Europe. This carved boat with immortals is actually a vanity case. Empress Dowager Cixi paid great attention to her appearance. The vanity case was not only of great decorative value, but also highly practical. Empress Dowager Cixi spent time appreciating only some of the many gifts. The rest she gave away or sent to a storehouse without even glancing at them. Many of them can be seen today in the side chambers of Pai Yuandian. The job of announcing the start of the celebrations fell to an official from the Directorate of Astronomy. Then, immediately, the sound of music could be heard emanating from Pai Yuandian. Empress Dowager Cixi then made her way up to the throne in the middle of the hall, while a guard of honor stood to attention. To the sound of solemn music, the grand ceremony began. From the height of her throne, Empress Dowager Cixi could look down upon the assembled crowd.